Hey everyone, it's BusanKevin, and it's time to tell another tale. Why? Because I just love telling stories. Now this is kind of a cautionary tale more than anything else. And what I want to talk about is my first day being a teacher. Now I've been a teacher for more than 7 years now. It's kind of hard for me to believe that. I was a teacher for a long time in Korea, and then I went back to grad school and got my license, and was a teacher in Canada, and now I'm a teacher in Japan. So I want to talk about my first day being a teacher ever, which would have been my first day as a teacher in Korea. Okay, so I guess I'm not very nostalgic about this one. You know, you think about nostalgia, how we like to sugarcoat the past and think back to, you know, we might look at a time when maybe things were actually in reality kind of tough or not so great, but as the years go by we look back at it and with our rose-colored glasses, it, you know, just things look better than they really were. Well, in my case, when I think back to my first day as a teacher, and honestly my first 6 months as a teacher, there's no nostalgia, there's no rose-colored glasses. It was hell. It was absolute hell. Now let me tell you why. So, my first year in Korea, I was teaching at, and right now I want to apologize for this wind. Obviously I can't turn off the wind. I'd like to if I could, but I'm trying to find somewhere to walk here where it's not very windy. But okay, so my first year in Korea, I got a job as an ESL teacher at a kindergarten. So in the morning we would have kindergarten students from about 9:30 in the morning. We'd have them till about 1:30 in the afternoon. And they'd leave. We'd have a break for a few hours. Then elementary school students would come in after their school was finished. And we'd finish work around 7:30. So I was working about 9 o'clock to 7:30 every day. And the school I worked at was actually, by terms of ESL schools, fairly big. We had about 8 teachers from the States, from New Zealand, from Canada. Now, I arrived on a Friday night at Incheon Airport in Korea, quite late, quite jet-lagged, quite pooped. I mentioned in my previous story, the owner of my school picked me up. My apartment was not ready. They took me to stay in a love motel actually for the first weekend. So, my second day in Korea, and it's a Saturday morning, and the guy I'm supposed to replace, who's the ex-head teacher, this older gentleman, meets me, takes me to the school, and he shows me around the school, takes me to the teacher's room, and more than anything just tells me stories about Korea and what it's like to be in Korea. And I'm wide-eyed and listening and really interested in hanging on every word, because, you know, this is all very new and exciting to me and I don't know anything. So we're there for a couple hours, no other people, just him and myself. And then he takes me out, shows me a bit around my area. I lived in a city called Ilsan, which is like a suburb or a satellite city of Seoul, about 40 minutes away by train. It was a pretty cool place. But he showed me around the neighborhood where I'd be living. And so he showed me that. He showed me the supermarket and a few other things. Now I was told that I was going to have 1 week of observation and training. I was told that by my recruiter back in Canada. So I was expecting on Monday morning when I arrived to do, you know, a week of job shadowing and observation and watching other teachers teach their classes and maybe getting some tips, because I've never taught children before. I briefly did some kind of like, almost like teaching assistant work in university during my undergrad and taught university students, like freshmen, public speaking, but that's all. Those are 18 and 19-year-olds. So I'd never taught children, let alone children who are 5 years old and don't speak English. So Monday morning arrives. I nervously arrive at my school, and oh, excuse me, I got to adjust my my Coke bottle here. Turn this thing around. I nervously arrive at school. I dress up, looking very professional, I might add. And I get to school, and I come and I arrive in the teacher's room, and I meet all the Korean staff. Because every time you teach a class, the kids spend a bit of time with you, maybe 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then they spend the same amount of time with a Korean co-teacher. So, I arrive there, I hang around, I'm introduced to everyone, You know, and then the bell rings. Now, I'm wondering, who am I going to be going with? Which teacher will I be going with to observe? So they hand me this blue basket. And in the basket there's a whole bunch of packs of pencil crayons, and there's some textbooks and workbooks and pencils and erasers and things like this, and whiteboard markers and, you know, erasers. And the woman comes up and hands it to me. Oh, well, thank you very much. Now, what is this for? She said, this is for your class. And she kind of pushes me out of the hallway, points to a door at the end of the hall, and she said, that's your classroom. I'm like, okay, well, who's teaching this class? Who am I going to be observing? Oh, you're not observing anyone. That's your class. You're teaching now. I said, excuse me? I'm supposed to have observation today. Oh, no. You're teaching. That's your class. They're in there waiting for you. What? Are you serious? And she says, yeah. And inside, I basically... Oh, can you internally lose control of all bodily functions? Emotionally, I suppose. I emotionally lost control of all my bodily functions. Yes. There you go. Picture that. Yeah, so I freaked. I was like, holy shit, I can't believe it. I mean, I've never taught children before. I've got no training, no idea what to do. So I walked down to my classroom and opened the door, and inside, basically, were 10 5-year-old Korean children almost swinging from the rafters. They were just running around the room and screaming, "Ah!" And, you know, going on and on in Korean, not speaking any English, and yeah. Now, of course, I've been in Korea now for a grand total of 2 days, and yeah, you know, not speaking a word of the language, not having a clue what's going on, having no concept of how to control children, having no concept of classroom management, having no concept of how to teach little kids. That's the situation I was in, and it sucked. So I went into that room, and I tried to get them to sit down. Okay, quiet. And they yelled and screamed and ran around, and then there I was, ooh, okay guys, could you please sit down, and they're like, "Ah!" And they're running around and throwing stuff and throwing their books, and I'm like, everyone just sit down, and I yell, and they're not listening to me. And they run, and I run out of the classroom, and I get another teacher from another room. I knock on the door, and I'm like, help me, and he comes in, and he, you know, says something to them. They all sit down, and it just went on, and it was just like one of the longest days of my life. I got through the day, and as the days and weeks went on, I never did get the observation, I never did get the training. I learned a lot from my co-teachers. There was a couple of guys from New Zealand who worked at my school who were very professional, very serious about what they did, and they were very good teachers. They still are, I'm sure. And I learned a lot from them. And yeah, I got through that first contract and changed schools quite soon thereafter. I mean, that was it. After that contract, I did not stay any longer. But it was a rough time. So there you go. Now this video is a bit longer than I normally would make one, but I just wanted to share that story. That was my first day as a teacher. And eventually I grew to love teaching. Obviously I became a professional teacher, and I went to grad school in Canada and got licensed, and you know, now that's what I do. So I'm obviously a very different teacher than I was on that first day. And for all of those out there who are thinking of coming to places like Japan or Korea or Taiwan or China to teach, I just, you know, a cautionary note: if you're promised training or observation periods before you teach, it may not really happen. Be prepared for that. I suggest spending some time before you leave your own native country preparing. Get some books about teaching. You know, take a course, take a TESOL course. You know, meet people who were teachers, watch YouTube videos, do your research, be at least a little bit ready, get some books, prepare, a little bit anyway, because I was completely unprepared, and it sucked. But obviously things turned out well in the end, because 7 years and change later, and I'm still teaching, and loving it, so there you go.